Oh, that's good Swiftos. It's Swifto's opinion. Ahar, mateys, 'tis be my opinion on this here game. Ye be looking at Overboard for the PS1. Ahar! And now that I've got that predictable talking like a pirate joke out the way, let's get super sensible and take a look at this here game. Overboard, also known as Shipwreckers in the US of A, for the PlayStation, the first. Maybe I'm drunk on nostalgia, or maybe I've just been at sea too long, but I feel that I have a strange connection to Overboard. This is a game that didn't receive much critical attention when it first set sail in 1997, and it seems it's a game forgotten by most these days. But I remember, and I know how it feels to not be well received and then to be forgotten. Damn you, high school friends. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is this is a game which I think is sadly overlooked. Yes, maybe it's partly just the nostalgia getting to me, but I honestly think this is a game that's just a little bit underrated. This game has a special significance for me, as it was one of the first games that I owned. You see, when I first got my PlayStation, it was a shared Christmas present between me and my big brother, which meant Big Brother got the PlayStation most of the time. Every PlayStation back then came with a demo disc. The demo discs, in case you didn't know, had demos of various different games, giving you a little sample of the game that would maybe convince you to buy the full game. I thought this was a good idea. It's much better to try the game yourself rather than reading the bollocks in the back of the cover, or watching some retard try to do a review of it. The demo disc that came with our PlayStation was pretty cool. It had some good games on it, and also had this weird floating T-Rex that you could play around with. This was how I first found out about Overboard. It was on this demo disc. Having lived all my life beside the sea and spending much of my childhood travelling boats, I've always liked boats and ships, and I've always wanted my own boat. Overboard was a game where you got to control a ship, a pirate ship no less, and it was just the sort of thing that would appeal to me. So I asked my mum if I could get it for Christmas, and to my surprise she did. That Christmas I got Overboard and Crash Bandicoot, and I love them both. They were great games, but the best thing about them is that they were my games. Not shared with my brother, but for the first time, and I still remember my mum saying this to me. She said, they're your games. Still, didn't stop my brother from playing them though. So yeah, putting away the nostalgia I have for one of the first games I ever owned and trying to review it critically, it's going to be hard. But here goes. As I mentioned already, the game came out in 1997 by Psygnosis and was released for the PC and PS1. I don't have the PC version, in fact I've never even played it. This video will focus purely on the PS1 version, as that's the one I have played. If you're looking to find out about the PC version, sorry, you're in the wrong place. To briefly go over what it says in the manual, it tells us the tale of a guy named Captain Blowfleet, and how he never lost a crewman from scurvy nor tsunami, and that his pirate mates were feared throughout the 7 seas, emboldened by a Egyptian enchantment that pretty much made them the bee's bollocks of the whole damn sea. Then it says that you are the only one that is brave or foolish enough to challenge him and plunder his booty. Why? Just because, that's why. Loading up the game, and on the first menu you will find free chest accompanied by some awesome piratey sounding music. One for the single player, one for the multiplayer, and the other for the game's settings and options. This is one of those early PS1 games that has a save system but also allows you to continue from certain points using a password system. Selecting the single player chest, you will notice not only the option to start the game but also the options to load a previously saved game and also to enter in a password. If you like people stating the obvious, then you're in for a treat, because let me tell you that starting a new game will load up the first level right from the very beginning, and then you'll be able to start playing. First thing you'll need to know is that you move the ship by pressing down the top right button and changing direction with the D-pad. This is an early game, so it does not use the analog sticks. You'll start off with just 2 attacks, however more weapons can be picked up along the way. One of the 2 attacks is the one-shot cannon that fires directly in front of you. This is not very powerful and I tend not to use it very often. The other starting attack is the side cannons that fire multiple shots, but is not as fast as the one-shot cannon. By pressing X you can fire from the port side and circle will fire from the starboard side. Something I always do at the beginning of the game is change the camera angle, as I don't really like the default. You can do this by pressing select. I prefer to have it so that the angle is always behind the ship. I think it's easier to control that way. Although this is a pirate-themed game that seems to be set in that time period when we romanticise pirates and ye good old days of scurvy and adventure, the game is clearly not historically accurate in any way. You'll surely be aware of this straight from the get-go, what with the cartoon intro at the beginning of the game. We also have advanced weapons such as the lightning bolt, rockets, aircraft and submarines, which hardly seems fitting for a pirate-themed game, but it doesn't really matter because it's a light-hearted game and it doesn't take itself too seriously. With the game's silly humour and the first region's levels being set in a bright, tropical area with relaxing music, you might think this is a nice fun little game, but don't let the fact that the first levels are really easy fool you. After you've defeated the first boss, the game seriously cranks up the difficulty. This ain't no game for any lily-livered landlubber. The later levels can be quite a challenge, or at least I think so. Even after all these years of playing the game, I still find it difficult. Basically, all you need to know is that you are in control of a pirate ship which you use to navigate through several different themed maze-like levels, and then fight a boss at the end of each region. Each level has a number of treasure chests to collect, which is an optional challenge, and also a variety of enemies who will try and stop you from capturing their ports. To capture the ports, you don't have to destroy all the enemy ships, you just have to destroy all the defense towers around it. Some will move and fire in certain patterns, but are easy to avoid so long as you're careful. After that, just sail up to the flag and it will be replaced with a Jolly Roger. Once you've captured the port, it will act as a save point should you die later on in the level. You must collect all the bottles you see floating around, as these will fill in your map. Sometimes your path will be blocked off until you get the next bottle, and the end point is only shown once you have the full map. Another little thing that you can do on certain levels is perform smuggling missions. When you see a big barrel like this, just sail over it to collect it. Then at a certain point on the map is a marker to highlight the drop-off point. Just sail over to that and you'll have succeeded in your smug little smuggle. The enemies come in many forms, from basic ships to advanced aircraft and bombing parrots. One of the flaws of the game is the enemy AI. They're a bit stupid and often get stuck in the walls and sail right into their own traps. They are easy enough to deal with on their own, but can be difficult when a few of them get you trapped in a tight corridor. I think the hardest enemy to avoid are the ones with the flamethrowers. Also, look out for flying saucers. Overboard is a really nice looking PS1 game in my opinion, and I just love all the subtle little details. Like when you sink a ship you can see it under the water, and when you kill one of the parrots it turns into a roast parrot. The shorelines have waves that go in and out, clouds pass overhead, the levels have night and day cycles, and everything looks really nice and detailed for a PS1 game. Other little details also enhance the gameplay, like when you find yourself on fire, your shipmates will start jumping out of the ship. Collecting them gives you a little of your health back. A handy hint to remember, if you're running low on health, try setting the enemy ships on fire. Then you can collect the people jumping out of their ships to gain more health. And if you find yourself on fire, try looking for a waterfall to put it out quickly. Keep an eye out for parts of the walls that look different. By firing at these parts you can reveal secret areas.
Secret areas can also sometimes be found in waterfalls. They usually have health and ammo boxes and often have treasure chests. These yellow ships here are actually extra lives. I always imagined them to taste like lemon cake or something.
There's also a multiplayer mode which can be played with up to 5 players. The multiplayer mode has you battling your friends in little arenas and can be quite fun at times, although the novelty kind of wears off after a while.
The game can be quite challenging, particularly with the boss fights, but it's not so challenging that it becomes boring to play. Parts of the game that can become a little tedious, however, are when you have to navigate through some of the bigger maze-like levels, as well as that the gameplay doesn't really change much. A few puzzle elements make the later levels a little bit more interesting at first, but I find that they often become more of a frustration rather than enhancing gameplay. Overboard is a game which I think is good in short blasts, but trying to play all the way through the game can become a bit samey and tedious. As much as I love the pirate theme and the feeling of nostalgia I have towards it, I have to be honest and say, well, it's good, but it's not brilliant. I wish they had made a sequel because I think with just a few tweaks here and there, it could have been a PS1 classic. I would at least recommend giving it a try, as I do think it's fun, for a while. But if it doesn't really float your boat, then maybe you should just give it a pass.
So there you go, that was my opinion of Overboard. I hope you found this video to be informative and enjoyable to watch. If not, then I'm very sorry about that. Please feel free to leave any feedback in the comments section. But for now, it's time for me to set sail. Travel across the deep blue sea, let the wind guide me, beyond the horizon to new adventures, to sights I'd never dreamt I'd ever see. Adios, my fine fellows, adios.